David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
So we have to talk once again about Republican Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell has really emerged as one of the most insidious and pernicious forces in American politics during the Trump administration, and he's doing really great things for Republicans. I mean, if you are a Republican and you are paying attention to what Mitch McConnell is doing and has been doing for the last 3 or so years, you probably think that the guy is absolutely brilliant and one of the best political operators in the game right now. And that's true. I mean, from the Republican point of view, Mitch McConnell successfully orchestrated the blocking of Merrick Garland's confirmation to the Supreme Court under Barack Obama in 2016. He got Donald Trump an additional Supreme Court pick who will be on the court, presumably for decades, and influence American culture and society and justice for a very, very long time in significant ways. Mitch McConnell participated hugely in the obstruction and disinformation around the release of the Mueller report and blocking various versions of it and killing bills meant to release the report. It's a very long list of Mitch McConnell's successes, and now he is blocking bills that are meant to fight election interference. There's a bill, H.R. 1, that the Senate could take up, which would do a lot to protect elections and to fight interference. And Mitch McConnell is not even giving it a shot. He says it's completely dead on arrival. And the argument that McConnell and some other Republicans are making is that the bill was a poisoned bill, that it goes too far, that it contains the wrong stuff and does the wrong things. But what you have to understand is that this is, once again, Mitch McConnell's well enough calculated for the Republican base opposition, because they've opposed dealing with foreign election interference at every opportunity. It's not actually about this particular bill. It's a much bigger issue. They claim to believe the Mueller report, right? Even though they misstate what the Mueller report says, when they say the Mueller report says no obstruction, no collusion, they appear to believe and to trust in the Mueller report. Well, the Mueller report also says there was significant foreign interference. Russia was involved. WikiLeaks was involved with Russia. This is a huge deal. Russians access voting systems in, I think it was like 24 states, 20 states or something like that. And Mitch McConnell has stood in the way of actually dealing with that interference in our elections at every single step. You've got Robert Mueller and the intelligence community and everybody who has any connection to reality warning us foreign interference is already happening for the 2020 election. It happened in 2016, and Mitch McConnell is making it so that absolutely nothing is done about it. And of course, I mean, if you want to follow the money, Mitch McConnell is tied to Russian oil money. Mitch McConnell has voted to drop sanctions on Putin-connected Russian oligarchs. Mitch McConnell received more than $3 million in campaign donations from a Russian oligarch-linked company, Al Altep Holdings. It's all a swamp. Mitch McConnell is right in there with it. And it would be great if Kentucky got its act together and removed this guy, because I have to admit, he's an extremely effective Republican operative, arguably one of the most effective in recent history. His involvement over the last, more than a decade, specifically with the courts and helping Republicans influence and control not just the Supreme Court, but federal judges and the courts and justice system at a bunch of different levels. This is one of the most successful and mostly out of the public eye political operations in modern times. And part of why it's been so effective, I mean, listen, controlling the courts helps Republicans win. Controlling the courts helps Republicans get their way when it comes to social issues, when it comes to corporate power and the sort of deference to corporations over the individual. But part of why it's effective is not only because of what it does, but because it's under the radar. It gets way less media attention to, over a 10-year period, slowly chip away and take control of the courts in many different ways, that it also doesn't generate as much loud and public activism against it, because a lot of people don't know that it's happening. And even if Donald Trump leaves in 2020, is voted out in 2020, Mitch McConnell and others, I mean, I don't want to give McConnell more credit than he deserves, but he deserves some pretty significant amount of credit here. They will have succeeded in this rightward swing of the American justice system in a way that is totally separate and distinct from Donald Trump, beyond Donald Trump just getting that extra Supreme Court pick, thanks to Mitch McConnell obstructing Merrick Garland back in 2016. So it's pernicious, it's dangerous, but you've got to hand it to Republicans. They have been doing great things for themselves, terrible things for the country, terrible things for the world, terrible things for just the average person in the United States, middle-class person, lower middle class, poor people. But for their agenda, this has been extremely successful. I think this is one of the biggest areas where Democrats have just totally dropped the ball. We talk about local organizing is a place where the left, I don't want to say we're not good at it, but we've not been good at it. We've not done it well. When it comes to influencing the justice system, it's another area where the left has to get it together. And you know what? I know I've said this a couple of times this week. When we even had people on the left in 2016, maybe not a lot, but some of them were loud, saying, Hillary, Trump, these are both centrist clowns. I don't like either of them. And if it's not going to be whoever, right? Bernie, Jill Stein, whoever it was, if it's not going to be that person, I'm indifferent between Hillary and Trump. This is why the right continues to get favorable decisions on corporate power and abortion now and so much else, because they understand getting your person in there to pick Supreme Court justices and to nominate federal judges, it has a massive impact. They are beating us on this. I don't want to keep losing on this. So let's actually understand it for what it is. Extremely important and a very well-crafted strategy that Mitch McConnell has been a big part of. Let me know what you think. I'm on Twitter at @DPacman. The show is on Twitter at David Pakman Show.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Today's new members of the day are Richard Kelly and Christian Hubbs. Richard and Christian, thanks so much. Membership, the #1 funding source for the show, comes with great member benefits, including the daily bonus show just for our paid subscribers, commercial-free audio and video streams of the show, a lot of other really great stuff, plus the great feeling that comes with knowing that you're doing a good thing and supporting independent progressive media. Let's also thank James Workinger, who is today's longtime sustaining member of the day. James has been with us since 2014, almost 5 full years of membership. Very, very exciting to have more and more people on the 5-year membership list, 6 and 7, and we are even approaching getting someone who has had 9 years of membership. We will be making a very big deal out of it, as you can imagine. Join them at www.joinpakman.com. Let's go to the phones at 617-830-4750 and see what's on people's minds. Let's start with our caller from the 786 area code. Caller from 786, who are you? Where are you calling from?
Is this me?
That is you.
All right, my name is Christian. I'm a student from Florida.
Hey, Christian, what's going on?
So I just wanted to ask you because I've kind of had this idea recently that I think the United States should move maybe for a more direct democracy system.
Okay.
So I just want to see, what do you think would be the best mechanism to achieve that? Because I'm just going to throw an idea out there. You can tell me what you think about it.
Yeah.
Imagine someone, for example, like Bernie Sanders, becomes president, and he passes an executive order that allows a law or maybe a constitutional amendment to be achieved by a direct national popular vote.
Yeah.
How do you think that's possible? Do you think that's something that someone should strive for?
Listen, there are a number of different ways that our democracy could become more direct. One of them, as you're suggesting, is replacing the Electoral College with a national popular vote. That's a good idea. The other thing you have to consider is that when corporations and rich people have disproportionate amounts of power and their desires are far more likely to become law or policy than those of someone in the middle class or the lower middle class or whatever, that is a form of making democracy more indirect, by which it is not an issue of the number of people that want something, but more an issue of the economic power that they hold. So yes, I think there are a number of ways that we can make our democracy more direct. I've been talking about some of them for a while, and I think it's really great that you're thinking about it, Christian, but there's something very strange happening on your phone that sounds like crinkling paper. So I'm going to let you go because it's a little bit painful to hear, but I appreciate the call and a very, very important topic. Okay. Let's go next to our caller from the 405 area code. Caller from 405. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
I'm 405. This is John.
Hey, John.
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
Good. Okay, I wrote down my question. All right. I'm a heavy breather, so it's not going to sound good on the phone. But, okay, here we go. So you were talking like a lot the past couple weeks about how it's really important for us to get the right president, well, whoever we is, to get the right president so that they can nominate the the justice that we want. And I have kind of maybe a bad question here, and it goes against America kind of. But anyway, so I thought that since the politics plays like a lot with the Supreme Court justice being nominated by the president, is there like a no vote option that anyone has ever considered with, for example, in like a no harm, no foul scenario where the Supreme Court justice would forego voting and live like everything from city to state to president, like no voting at all for in lieu of the Supreme Court justice position. Is that like a horror? I know it goes against democracy. And that,
John, let me interrupt for a second. I don't know what you're
Yeah.
talking about, and it sounds like you're pressing. I'm curious. Are you doing something else in addition to doing this call right now?
No, I'm just sitting at my kitchen. I'm just nervous, I guess.
Oh, okay. So I don't know. You're saying I have no idea what you're saying. You're saying who doesn't get to vote and for what in relation to the Supreme Court?
Okay, I'm sorry. Whichever judge is nominated by the president.
Yes.
Could we have like I got myself away from the phone a little bit, so maybe that's better. Is there like a no vote option, like a no harm, no foul?
What does that mean?
Like,
who vote? What do you mean no vote? Who gets
the court justice themselves?
The court justice votes for themselves to get or not get onto the Supreme Court?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm doing this all wrong. Okay, so the president nominates a court justice,
Right.
and the court justice obviously has a bias of voting, like every single one of us. So they're nominated by the president that they're in line with, right?
Yes.
So could there be a no harm, no foul, like a no vote option for court justice once they accept the job?
It's not a question, John. They don't accept the job.
Would that help or no?
They have to get confirmed, and then who gets to vote no and for what? John, I'm sorry, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm going to let you go.
No, don't vote at all.
I got 30 people holding here, but I don't. No harm, no foul. I don't know what you mean. Let's go next to our caller from the 650 area code. Who's calling today from 650?
Hello, is this me?
That is you. Yeah. Who's this?
All right, so I'm Luke. I'm from the Bay Area.
Hey, Luke.
At least by Bay Area standards, I'm a bit of a moderate, but I guess in the grand scheme of things, I'm pretty progressive.
All right.
And so my question is about like the feasibility of the progressive plans long term. Like I've seen your videos about like how, like say a Sanders administration would like pay for the things like Medicare for all and the Green New Deal and stuff like that.
Okay.
But I think, don't we have to like take into account like the American politics when we're thinking about these policies? So it's like Bernie is, I would say, like pretty far on the left of mainstream American politics.
On what issue?
So I worry that.
Hold on, Luke. Let's explore that. On what issue is Bernie very far to the left compared to the American population?
No, not population, politics, like in how politics is going.
So you're saying, I just want to, you're saying compared to the elected officials in the House and Senate,
Yeah.
Bernie is to the left?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I would grant that. I would say you're right that the public at large is well to the left of the average of our House and Senate. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And so like, but like that's still kind of worrying to me because like, say like, you know, Bernie gets in and like creates like some great progressive policies and, you know, has ways to pay for it. But let's say like a few years down the line, there's a Republican that gets elected, and because like it's very hard to scale back federal spending from previous administrations, he or she's unable to do that. I'm talking about the Republican.
Right.
And they just come up with tax cuts because that's politically popular. And that seems to have always been politically popular. And so then we continue to this trend of where some Democrat gets in and, you know, kind of creates a change of progressive policies and increases spending. And then Republicans just come in, don't have ways of decreasing spending, but they cut taxes.
They cut revenue, and then they can starve programs. Well, I would challenge you on the idea that you said this continues the trend of progressives getting in and doing progressive stuff, and then Republicans come in and then they cut revenue. What progressives have done what progressive stuff?
Well, like, I mean, it doesn't even necessarily have to be a super progressive, which I guess is one of the things I'm worried about. Like, I know that, like, Obama, like, could have been a lot more progressive, but, like, he still increased spending, like, you know, with, like, the stimulus package and stuff. And
okay, yeah, but I mean, I think what you have to, so stimulus package is a one-time expense, number one. So that would be, you're talking about how once you grow the budget, it's hard to cut it back down. And I agree with you, but then now you're giving an example of something that was a one-time stimulus, or they did, you know, it was broken up into a couple of different things. I think that what you're maybe not accounting for here is that these are programs, by and large, which are widely supported by the American public. So imagine for a second, Bernie Sanders becomes president. He gets Medicare for all passed. It's paid for through the payroll tax that he has proposed, but on the back end, employers are no longer paying health insurance premiums to insurance companies. Co-pays go away, all of this different stuff. Okay, more or less, we're just replacing spending with spending from elsewhere. If a Republican president comes in after 4 years of that or 8 years of that and says, hey, we're cutting taxes and what we're going to stop paying for is that Medicare for all, the backlash would be insane, much the way that it's been insane even trying to repeal Obamacare, which they haven't been able to do after dozens and dozens of attempts. So I think that your concern, it's not a crazy concern. It's just not in practice the way this would be played out. And it would be a terrible reason not to do progressive things because a Republican at some point in the future might try to cut the funding for it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It was just, thank you for taking my call. And yeah, I really appreciate you and your show for giving it.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate the phone call. Great to hear from Luke from the Bay Area. Good to hear from you. Let's go next to our caller from the 786 area code. Who's on the phone today from 786 and where are you calling from?
Hello?
Yeah, that's you.
Hi, I'm Steve from Miami.
Hey, Steve, what's going on?
Good. I had two questions. Well, the fact that Democrats are really basically doing nothing, and last election we had a huge turnout. Don't you think it's going to backfire? And these people who actually voted for the first time are going to be so turned off that they're not going to vote.
Why? Hold on. People that voted when for the first time?
In the last election.
2016 or 2018, though?
18.
Okay. People who they voted for the first time in 2018.
Yeah, a huge amount of Democrats voted for the first time, right, in 2018.
Right. And they might be turned off by what?
By the fact that the Democrats are really not even going to impeachment hearings.
Okay, so that's a very specific. So first you said Democrats aren't doing anything. Now you're saying they're not doing impeachment hearings.
No, I'm talking. But that's basically nothing. I mean,
well, hold on. Let's get back to impeachment in a second. What is it Democrats in the House could have done so far that they haven't done?
Well, the fact that they did impeachment hearings, they would, all these subpoenas that are being rejected and all that.
Yeah,
It'd be a different instance. Okay. And then the public, I mean, I don't know if you watched, what's that Republican that actually said he should be impeached?
Justin Amath.
There was a woman in there who was really like, oh, the Mueller report, it said nothing, because she really didn't know. At the end of what, she heard from him, her eyes were open, and she's like, oh, I didn't know that, because all she does is listen to, the garbage on Fox and all that.
Oh,
And
yeah. So you're
changed
saying
her mind.
if there were impeachment hearings held, it would push out a lot of the facts in the Mueller report
Yes,
to the general public.
correct.
I agree with you. So let's take these two
and I
issues
think the Democrats
separately.
should know that.
Yeah. So I agree.
because
I think
sitting there-
it's time for Democrats in the House to start impeachment debate. I agree with you completely. I don't
Right.
think, now here's the thing. If you believe that impeachment debate should start, you probably don't want Trump to be president. So I don't think that if Democrats don't hold impeachment hearings, you're going to skip voting for someone other than Trump in 2020. I just don't think it follows.
I may not, but there may be a lot of people that will.
Okay. I mean, so you're asserting that. I've seen no evidence to suggest that.
I mean,
I think,
look at the margin he won by. It was so slim.
yes.
Okay. So the fact that the Democrats got a lot of new voters. Okay. Basically, I think I'm assuming, I'm not going to say it for sure. It was basically because they wanted Trump out. It was an anti-Trump vote.
For a lot of people,
Okay.
it was, sure.
Right. So if they lose those people because they say, you know what, the Democrats do nothing. Okay. So I'm not going to vote. My vote's worth nothing because I put somebody in power to do something, they do nothing.
All right. Well, listen, I hope you're wrong. You may be right. I've
Okay,
seen no
my
data
next-
specifically, but I will
But
certainly look into it more.
My
And
next
now
one
I'm
is
feeding
really
back, so
important.
I'm going to let you go as the echo and
Wait, my next one
speakerphone or
is
something
really-
seems to have started. Oh, boy. Okay. Let's go to our next caller from the 240 area code. Something up with the phones today, I think. Let's go. Who's calling from 240 and where are you calling from?
Hey, David Backman. This is Eric.
Hey, Eric.
From
What's
Baltimore.
going on?
Yeah, I called you about 3 weeks ago.
All right. So, Eric, listen, something's going on with your phone. Every third word, it sounds like you're underwater. Is there anything we might be able to do about that?
Oh, I mean, can you hear me? I'm
No,
talking in a quiet place by myself.
Just barely. Let's try. Let's try it one more time. What was your question?
I'm sorry. I was saying I called you 3 weeks ago. Can you hear me?
Yes, you called 3 weeks ago.
Okay. I called you about 3 weeks ago, and we got into it about the Trump Tower meeting being a setup, and I saw that you posted it on your YouTube channel. Do you
Okay.
remember that by any chance? I know it's been a while.
It rings a bell. It rings a bell. Yeah.
Yes. I'm holding a NBC News, NBC News, just a letter, I guess you can call it. It says Trump dossier firm, which is Fusion GPS, also supplied info used in Trump Tower meeting. And the second paragraph says, in an interview with NBC News, Russian lawyer Natalia Veselnitskaya says she received supposed incriminating evidence for the Trump Tower meeting from Fusion GPS owner Glenn Simpson.
Okay.
And then you said I was disconnected from reality, and you hung up on me.
Okay,
So I was
listen,
just-
I
I
don't
just wanted to get your
remember
reaction
the
to that
specifics of the
NBC.
conversation. I also just am lacking the context to know what the paragraph you read, how it relates to what you're asserting. But if you email it to me, I'll take a look at it.
It relates exactly to what I was asserting. I told you that it was a setup by Fusion GPS, which is a Democrat Party op research firm. And then I said that the lady was sent in by Fusion GPS, Glenn Simpson, who is the founder and the owner. And you said, I'm disconnected from reality and I can't walk and chew bubblegum at the same time, or something of that nature.
That's not
So I
really
just
a
wanted to get
phrase
your
that I
reaction.
use. So the fact that you're attributing a
That's-
phrase like that to me makes me question your recollection of it. But listen, Eric, I don't
It's on-
remember
it's on your
exactly what you're
YouTube
talking
channel, buddy.
about, and your audio's going in and out. So can you email me what you're talking about, and I'll look at it.
Certainly.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate the call. I will look at that, and we will research and follow up. Okay, who's calling today from the 602 area code? Caller from 602.
Hello.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Julia. I'm originally from the Netherlands. I'm calling from Arizona, as that's your source. over 4 years now.
Great, Julia. If you can speak up a little bit, that would be very much appreciated.
Oh, okay. I'm using earphones, so I didn't have to be on speaker. Does that work?
Yes. What's your question today?
Okay, I was wondering about. I'm very left wing, obviously, being from Europe, but I was wondering about voter ID laws, the left wing perspective here, because to me in the Netherlands, that's a normal thing. Everyone has an ID. Everyone's required to have an ID from the time they're a teenager.
Yeah, I mean, so
So I was
everything's
kinda wondering
completely
what you
different in the Netherlands. So I understand what you're saying, and I understand that there is a sort of very simplistic case to be made that, like, listen, the IDs are free and just everybody needs an ID and that's it. But unfortunately, in reality, in the United States, it's been extremely politicized. In the United States, not everyone automatically gets these IDs when they're teenagers, and thus, as adults, you are required to present other documents which themselves do have costs associated with them. And so I get what you're saying in the Netherlands. The Netherlands is functioning far better on this issue than the United States, but it's not equivalent for that reason.
I was just kind of curious if you could explain to me the case for why here in America it does lead to a voter suppression to ask for IDs.
We've done a long form deep dive on this, so there's a lot tied into this, but this is part of the package of voter suppression that the right has to differing degrees of success perpetuated in the United States, and we've dealt very, very specifically in detail with it. So I'm not going to go through the full scope of it now, but you're right. Within a European perspective, how is it that just requiring an ID can be a form of voter disenfranchisement? But unfortunately, it is here in the United States, and we've got a bunch of videos on the YouTube channel about it. Really appreciate your call. Okay. That does it for today. Thanks to everybody who called, and apologies to everybody I did not get to.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
Okay, so earlier this week, I interviewed T.M. Garrett, who is a former white supremacist, was in the German version of the KKK, who told us about how he was radicalized and eventually how he became de-radicalized, as well as his involvement and the appeal of being part of a lot of the groups that he was a part of, dating all the way back to age 15, growing up in Germany. Today, for the classic interview, we'll go back to my interview with Scott Shepard, who is also a former white nationalist, white supremacist KKK guy, but from here in the United States. He was a former Grand Dragon of the KKK in Tennessee. He now is an anti-racism campaigner, a totally different take on how he got into and out of extremism. But I think you'll notice some similar themes: the sense of wanting community, the triggers for saying, you know, the doubts I've been having about these movements have now surpassed the level at which I can sort of comfortably or semi-comfortably continue ignoring them and continue doing what I'm doing. Horrible things, by the way. So let's get to my interview from March of 2016 with former KKK Grand Dragon Scott Shepard. It's great to be joined again by Scott Shepard, a former Grand Dragon of the KKK in Tennessee, now a anti-racism campaigner. He has turned his back on the KKK, and this is Scott's second appearance on the program. Scott, you know what? I always wonder, Grand Dragon, Grand Wizard, like, what are these ranks? It sounds like a tabletop board game to me.
Well, basically, names that they've used, you know, of course, Grand Dragon would be compatible with like the governor of the state of Tennessee. And you, of course, you got the Grand Wizard, that'd be compatible to, compared to the president of the United States. It's just a list of terms that, you know, given the officers and stuff from the ranks on down to go by chain of command.
So wizards are higher than dragons in the KKK hierarchy.
Yes, the Grand Wizard, or sometimes called Grand Wizard, Imperial Wizard, and National Director is the top level. He's just like the president.
All right.
I mean, not just like the president, but that's the the rank.
Right. It's not exactly like being president of the United States, but maybe in their mind it sort of is, right? So, we've
Exactly.
seen with the Donald Trump campaign so many different white separatist and white supremacist groups have pointed out, for a variety of reasons, that Donald Trump is inspiring them to vote and to get out and try to support Trump's candidacy. We've seen David Duke say that Donald Trump is the guy. What do you see as someone who was in the KKK at one point as what is the appealing element of Trump's rhetoric to these individuals? Why do they like him?
Well, basically, I think it's basically when I was in Texas for the film fest with Daryl Davis, who familiar with, we were sitting down and talking. And of course, Donald Trump is hitting on all these issues, and of course, I can't say Donald Trump's racist per se,
Right.
Or not, but he's using these terms, issues, and stuff that the KKK and all white supremacist groups have hit on for years and years and years. And I'll say this: if it wasn't Donald Trump, it would be someone else. And then, of course, if you remember Patrick Buchanan,
Yeah.
he was a big presidential campaign that was supported by the white supremacist movement.
Yeah, Buchanan's the last guy that was sort of able to coalesce these elements of the extreme right into something that was a group of people supporting a sort of alternative type of candidate. But I don't think Buchanan came close to sort of being the catalyst that Donald Trump is for getting the support. I mean, we talked about Stormfront. The Stormfront website has had to upgrade its servers in part to deal with the increased web traffic they're getting because of Trump's candidacy. We've seen a resurgence from the Daily Stormer, which recently sent all sorts of anti-Semitic faxes to universities around the country. Is your sense that Donald Trump's views on immigration from Latin American countries have hit a nerve? Is it his proposed ban on Muslim travel? I mean, what specifically do you think it is?
Specifically, I think it has to do with the atmosphere that we're in today. Of course, when Patrick Buchanan ran, there wasn't a whole lot of the terrorism going on then that's going on now. And I think this atmosphere of the entire nation and world, whatever, is just kind of people are more angry and they're picking up on these issues a lot more. And of course, Donald Trump's campaign and David Duke's campaign that they ran in the past do run parallel. These are the issues that the Klan, white supremacist groups and stuff pick up to, try to legitimize themselves to make them look more into the mainstream of politics. And they use these different candidates like that to, for self-gain. That's some of their programs, the illegal immigration and things like that. But that's where they jump on these bandwagons of these mainstream politicians that are hitting on these same issues. And I think it has to do with anger and fear.
You mentioned something earlier that I want to go back to because I've been talking about it also. You said you can't really say whether Donald Trump is a racist. And I've been saying for a while that I don't know that Donald Trump even really believes half of what he's saying. I don't think he expected to get nearly as far as he did in this presidential campaign. One really interesting thing is that Donald Trump's daughter has converted to Judaism. Her husband is Jewish. Donald Trump's grandkids, many of them, are Jewish. You would think that this would be a huge turnoff to groups like the KKK and other white separatist and white supremacist groups. Why do they seem to still support Trump in spite of the fact that so much of his own family is Jewish?
Well, I believe it's because, just like I said, Trump's hitting on all these issues that the Klan and other white supremacist groups have used. It wouldn't matter. Like I said, it wouldn't matter if it was Donald Trump or anyone else. I know the Jewish issue was out there, and you would think that they're would like to distance themselves from Trump because of that. But again, they're latching on to someone that's in the mainstream public right now, and Donald Trump is, and they're just, they're opportunists. They'll overlook these issues for self-gain. They don't care about Donald Trump and his Jewish connections or anti-Jewish connections. They're just looking for a opportunity to jump on the bandwagon to make yourself look more legitimate.
Hey, Scott, when you were in the KKK, were there ever any candid conversations with the other, be it dragons or wizards or underlings or whoever it was at the time, where you guys kind of candidly said, yeah, I don't actually really think that the Jews are bad people or black people are bad people or whatever, but you sort of said this is the sort of the talking points that we're using and subscribing to? Were there candid conversations of doubt, or was it, no, if you're in this group, you'd better express support 100% of the time?
Well, pretty much you have to express it 100% of the time. At the time also, years ago, I didn't really get into the anti-Jewish movement because it wasn't an issue with me that, about Jewish people. I was raised up with Jewish people and always had a good relationship and good friendships and still friends with them today because we grew up together. But, I was a candidate in Tennessee for governor and state representative, and we did, I know this is what the people do. I did the same thing. I jumped right on those issues that Donald Trump is using in other mainstream candidates. It's just Donald Trump is coming out and saying boldly and out loud what's being said behind closed doors. And I don't care if the Republican Party wants to act like they're going to, disavow Donald Trump or whatsoever. He is saying what's being said in the smoke-filled back rooms.
Did you ever get the sense when you were in the KKK that there's this common refrain you often hear from groups like the KKK? It's not so much that we're against other races, but we want to defend and support the white race, right? It's a sort of white pride movement as opposed to an anti-non-white movement. When we hear that talking point, do people in the KKK believe that, or do they understand that it's just sort of a way to make the movement more palatable from a PR perspective? Not very effective, but is that sort of understood to be nonsense, or do people really believe that the KKK isn't anti-other races, it's just pro-white?
Well, I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head. It's just, it's an image thing, and they use that second, example that you use. They say they're not anti-black or whatever, and then of course they're just saying they're pro-white, want equal rights for whites, and they believe blacks should have equal rights also. But behind closed doors, they're using the N-word and making jokes, against people of color and different religions. So yeah, it's a smoke screen. It's a smoke screen. They really, but and they do believe in separation of the races and the right to, self, determination, but they're against black people totally. I mean, that's just what's being said in back rooms, not up front.
There's, I don't know if you've seen the TV series Sons of Anarchy, but there is a sort of storyline in that where the main biker gang turns out that they have someone in their ranks who is part black, right? And if it were to be found out, that would be really bad for this half black guy. Do you have any stories or recollections from when you were in the KKK of sort of either suspicions or it comes to light that someone who is in the group actually is partly non-white?
Well, yes, and I'll the most important example I can give you is myself. They say that the KKK and these white supremacist groups believe in a pure race, totally 100% white blood, no mixing or whatsoever. Technically, I wasn't even supposed to be a member of the Klan or allowed to be a member of the Klan because I got Native Indian in me. I'm not.
So you're part Native American, and you knew that all along.
Oh, I knew it all along, right? And it just, I just never. I guess I never gave it any thought, but now I can. But I think there's a lot of those situations like that now. I'm not the only one.
Yeah, no,
yes,
I bet.
I'm definitely not pure white, and who knows? Did the DNA? No telling what might pop up in me. But they don't give you a DNA test to join the Klan of white supremacist groups.
Right. Yeah. Maybe that'll be the next step in the application process. Who knows? They're gonna have to tighten that up a little bit. If you can't have dragons and wizards who aren't completely white, that's for sure. Scott Shepard, former Grand Dragon of the KKK in Tennessee. Scott, it's always so great to talk to you. And tomorrow we'll be having Daryl Davis on, a friend of Scott's who has produced an incredible documentary film. And thank you so much, Scott, for putting us in touch with him.
Well, I appreciate it. I think you'll really enjoy talking to Daryl, and please tell him hello for me. I'll be talking with him, and I really, really enjoyed being able to be a part of that documentary myself. It really meant a lot, and I think it needs to be shown completely across the country. And after all these film fests, because it really strikes a nerve, and it's a unique way that Daryl's approaching these issues and trying to tear down the barriers of racism.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Okay, let's get into audience questions for the week. I genuinely love this first question, and I have a lot to say about it. Hey, David, what wastes of money are you shocked people still fall for? There's like a big one, which I'm going to lead up to, but a couple of small things are, I am always surprised when people buy insurance on relatively small purchases, and I understand the idea that if it's something very expensive, you actually may suffer a hardship if it breaks and you have to fix it or replace it. I can understand getting an insurance policy, replacement plan, extended warranty, or whatever. But particularly as someone who worked at Circuit City and sold a lot of these inexpensive insurances and service plans and stuff like that, it really doesn't make sense on small purchases. And I don't know why anybody continues to buy it. And the way I now don't get insurance on anything, no service plans, no warranties, any of that stuff. And the calculation I've made is that all of the stuff I never got insurance on and it never broke, that's thousands upon thousands of dollars in insurance dollars that I never spent. So I'm so far ahead at this point that I feel like I'm properly kind of like self-insured. Health insurance, of course I have. Home insurance, I think I have to have it, but I have that. But insurance plans on really inexpensive items, I think are a waste of money. In general, stuff that people don't use and don't cancel, I'm still surprised at the number of people, friends I have who say, I really got to cancel that credit monitoring thing or whatever. I never look at it. I don't even know what my access code is, but I just keep paying the $25 a month. You got to cancel that stuff. That is a stunning waste of money to me. But the big one that shocks me, how are people still falling for pyramid schemes? And as it has been more friendly, more sort of appealingly renamed, multi-level marketing. I don't know how people still fall for it. The number of people I'm friends with on Facebook that are doing a whole bunch of these multi-level marketing things is absolutely shocking to me. And whenever it comes up in sort of social settings, I'm not trying to have huge conflicts with people in my personal life. So I will often be very, very polite and actually say, how many sales have you actually made? And they'll say, well, for now, I really only purchased my supply of stuff so that I have demos, and I've only made like a sale or two. And I say, oh, okay. But now you have all that stuff that you can sell over the next few months. And they'll say, well, actually, in order to remain as a reseller, you actually have to place an order every month. And then I say, oh, so every month you actually have more stuff you have to buy, regardless of whether you're making any sales? And they say, yeah, you do, but I'm building my business and all this stuff. It's stunning to me that people are still falling for that stuff. And I think I get one aspect of it, which is wages have been stagnant for however long they've been stagnant. People are looking to make some extra money. People want autonomy. So all of these MLMs and pyramid schemes are designed to prey upon people who say, hey, okay, I have a job and I don't want to leave that job, but I would like a little extra money. I would like to build my own business and be my own boss and work on my own time. And that's why people fall for it, because it is appealing. It is actually appealing. But it is so pernicious. And of course, the number of people who even make back their initial investment is relatively small. Never mind, the number of people who ever make over $1,000, period, with any of these things in profit is so astronomically small. And you're always told about the success stories. Don't fall for it. Don't fall for it. There are endless resources online about all of the companies that are MLMs and pyramid schemes. You'll notice I haven't named any of them in this segment because a lot of those companies are very, very litigious, and I'm not interested in that. But please stop. And this is also to my friends. Please, please stop. You're falling for scams, and focus on improving yourself. Start a real small business if that's what you're interested in doing. Look at just working a little more or developing your skills so that you can get a promotion. I think that those are much better uses of time and money than participating in these MLM nonsense schemes. Next question today. Hey, David, should underage girls have to have their rapists' babies? Listen, this is very, very simple for me. The answer is no. Okay. Is the mother better off having a baby that they didn't want to have, particularly when they are underage girls? The answer is obviously not. Is the baby better off having such a young parent that didn't want to have them to begin with? The answer is obviously no. And there are more and more states, as we've been talking about for the last couple of months in this new era of a very conservative Supreme Court, thanks to Mitch McConnell's obstruction of Merrick Garland during the Obama presidency, Donald Trump defeating Hillary Clinton in 2016, and then appointing two people to the Supreme Court. In this new era of Supreme Court conservatism, there are a lot of anti-choice activists that are now starting to put proposals out that say, you do have to have the baby if you are a victim of rape. You do have to have your rapist's baby. I'm against this, but it's important to understand that a lot of this is strategy from the right. 2 weeks ago, I believe it was, when we talked about the Georgia and Alabama bills, I pointed out to you that I believe a lot of conservatives agree that rape victims, particularly underage girls, shouldn't be forced to have their rapist babies. But they are playing the longer game, and they are playing the game really well, which is they want to get one of these laws contested, blocked by an immediate lower level court, appealed all the way to the Supreme Court of the United States, hopefully to get a Supreme Court ruling that will contradict Roe v. Wade and allow an easier path to state level bans on abortion. So even though there are definitely some anti-choice people who genuinely, sincerely believe that underage girls should be forced to carry to term the babies of their rapists, I think a lot of anti-choice people are just saying it because they understand the sort of strategic goal of getting one of these cases to the Supreme Court in order to further the anti-choice movement over the long term. Now, I also want to point out, the reality is that in practice, these laws banning abortion, even in cases of rape, will cause more babies to be born to poor mothers and to mothers who are not equipped to be mothers, because wealthy people are going to be able to continue getting abortion safely, right? Private clinics that operate discreetly, the ability to travel to nearby states that haven't banned abortion, those are things that are much more accessible for middle class, upper middle class, and rich people. So what you perpetuate by doing something like banning exceptions for rape and incest, for example, when it comes to abortion, what you perpetuate is mothers having children who are likely to be poor, which the right claims is bad for society. Why are they pushing a policy that would actually perpetuate more of that? It's all because of this broader strategy of trying to get something to the Supreme Court, getting a favorable decision that is anti-abortion, and then using that to justify all sorts of state-level abortion bans. And they're carrying it out really damn well. And we should all be activating against it. And we should all be making sure that Donald Trump doesn't get another Supreme Court pick, which would be truly and absolutely disastrous. Hey, David, do you believe that the number of seats in the House of Representatives should be expanded? This came up on a recent YouTube live stream that I did. And my answer is basically yes, I do. Right now, each House seat represents about 750,000 people. And there have been 435 seats in the House of Representatives dating all the way back to the late 20s, I believe 1929. And obviously, the population of the United States has grown hugely. I think it's almost 3 times bigger today than it was back in 1929, maybe even more. I'm now just going by rough numbers, but the point is, each congressional district used to include way fewer people than it does today. And if we wanted to keep the same proportional representation that we had in 1929 today, we should grow the House of Representatives to somewhere between 1,100 and 1,200 members. Okay, we have 435. And what you have to understand when you think about this issue is that this runs directly counter to the interests of those who are already in the House of Representatives. What I mean by that is, if you got elected to the House of Representatives and you currently represent 750,000 people, and you are 1 out of 435, why would you want to see your power diminished by expanding the number of seats in the House of Representatives? Because what you would effectively be doing is you would reduce the number of people that you represent by reducing the number of people in each congressional district, and you would be voting to make yourself not 1 out of 435. You make yourself 1 out of 1,000 or 1 out of 1,200. And most of the elected officials aren't going to want to reduce their own power. It's just not something most people want to do. It's similar to campaign finance reform. And I've talked about this before. When we ask our elected officials to change the campaign finance system, yes, some of them say, I want to do it and I would vote for it and I'll do it. And I guess we believe them when they say that. But if you were elected to begin with a particular campaign finance system, many of those people are not going to want to take apart the system that got them elected to begin with. Now, there are people who are thinking this through a little bit more critically, and they realize that if we change the entire system, everybody benefits, and maybe their party actually benefits more. I would argue that Democrats would benefit more from reforms to the campaign finance system than Republicans. And that's when you can actually get some sort of partisan agreement, right? The reason that you would see significant support for expanding the number of seats in the House of Representatives would be if one party determines that it would be good for them. I believe that it would be better for Democrats. Democrats would benefit more when you expand the number of seats. You shrink the advantage of the Electoral College for Republicans. Currently, that favors Republicans. And there are other sort of more micro ways that I believe it would benefit Democrats. But to make a long story short, yes, we absolutely should expand the number of seats in the House of Representatives. Good luck doing it. Significant opposition would be seen, definitely from Republicans, maybe even from centrist Democrats as well. So I don't know that I see it happening anytime soon, although I would love it. If you disagree with me, let me know. I want to know why. Why should we not expand the number of seats in the House of Representatives? It used to expand with population, and it is not since 1929. What's so special and perfect about 435? We've got a great bonus show for you today. Become a member or a patron to get instant access to the bonus show.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.